Welcome back to Station Alisel. Today I'm just going to be talking about the 3 books that I read in March, and let's just jump right into it. So the first book that I finished was Daughter of the Empire by Raymond Feist and Janny Wurts, and this book is amazing for something that was written in 1987. I wasn't expecting it to have, I guess, as many relevant messages as it did. And I thought the world was super rich. It was beautiful storytelling. The characters were really interesting, and partway through I got a little bit nervous about some choices that were made, but by the end of it, it was very well done, I think, and I'm really excited to read the sequel. So let's just see a quick overview of what this book is. It's like Korean epic high fantasy, and it's apparently a sequel series to other books that Raymond Feist has written. It's like in the same world as some of his other books, but it's a completely different story, and I haven't read those books, but maybe I might. Mara is our main character, and she becomes the ruling lady of her family clan. And it's pretty much a journey of her rise to power and the choices that she makes and how that leads to some really interesting scenarios for her. And she's a really smart character, which I loved. And I think like the themes of power and love and family and honor, I thought were all very interesting and very well explored in this book. And I love the side characters. There's so many really good side characters that help and support her, but also really well written antagonists. And it also has a really interesting sci-fi element to it that isn't super explored in this book, but I think makes the world really interesting and well-rounded in terms of just environment and world building. So if you love epic fantasy, sci-fi with a Korean twist, I think you'd really enjoy Daughter of the Empire. So I encourage you to read it. The second book that I read in March was Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. And this book, I think I really enjoyed it. There was just a few moments where some things felt rushed. A little bit of the time jumps felt hard to connect the main character as the same person, just because there was like a 15-year time gap that made it hard for me to enjoy the character older. And I don't know if it's necessarily just the time gap, but I think there were some characterization elements that could have been strengthened for the second half of the story. But overall, I think she did a really great job writing this story. It's a Greek mythology retelling of very famous characters from the Odyssey and the Iliad. So it follows the sister of Helen of Troy. So if you know that story from the Odyssey and the Trojan War and just all of the people involved. And then Agamemnon and the Mycenaeans. It just bridges those stories in a really interesting way from the perspective of Clytemnestra. And she had a really kind of tragic story, so it was much sadder than the other book that I've read by Costanza Casati, Babylonia. That book was definitely more positive in tone, even though it explored some darker themes. But I feel like this one was very dark and tragic, and I do think it was handled well. It was just, I don't know, maybe darker than I was expecting. However, I think how she handled the characterization of all of the different characters that we're somewhat familiar with from other stories, I think they were all done very well. And the sisterhood between all of the different sisters and the parent dynamics and relationships with her husband and just other people, I thought was really well done and explored really well. So I think if you like Greek stories already, you'd really enjoy this one. Just prepare for it to be darker tone. But this one, let's see. My review says, I loved how crafted and intricate the motivations and behaviors of the characters were. I remember reading the Odyssey in high school, and we were asked to explain if we thought Odysseus was a hero or not. And I said he was not a hero because he was unfaithful to Penelope. And I still don't consider him a hero in this story. And then I also don't really consider Clytemnestra a hero. She was a tragic figure that made some hard choices with lasting consequences, especially regarding her children. And I think that parenting dynamic was really hard for me to get behind her as a character, just because she favorites some children over others, and she's not a very present mother, which I thought was interesting given her early characterization as a young woman. So just really, I don't know, just really sad the way that her life kind of turned out, even though some things go the way she wants. I just feel like she sacrificed too much to get there, and I'm curious what you think if you've read the book. Let's see. That one I gave 4 stars, and Daughter of the Empire I gave 5 stars. And then we have the last book that I finished in March is Fevered Star, which is the sequel to Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And I really enjoy this world. I really like the characters that we get to explore, and this one definitely didn't let me down in terms of being a sequel. I think there were just a few things lacking for me, but I gave it 4 stars. So this is a fantasy fiction, historical fantasy with some LGBTQ themes, indigenous, and religious themes that I thought were really well explored. And I really enjoyed the continuation of the drama and politics that Rebecca had established in the first book. And I think the characters stayed pretty true to themselves in the character arcs they had in the first book to this one. I did think the ending was unexpected in a good way, and how she handled motivations and choices of our 2 kind of main characters. And I really like the drama of how she pulled and brought different characters together, and obviously having them unaware of things that you as the reader know just made for really interesting drama. So Serapio and Narampa's arcs really surprised me, especially at the end, with the choices that they made. And so I think if you haven't read this series, I think you'd really enjoy it. It has some darker themes, again, some child abuse, religious abuse, probably a little bit. But just characters tackling these themes in their world. And there's a few sad deaths and a few magical elements that were definitely more explored in this sequel than they were in the first book. And I think part of that is characterization and what some characters have to experience. And so I thought that was kind of clever to reveal more of the world to us as the characters learn more about it, which, you know, of course always happens in books, but just the way that this was handled with the magic in the world I thought was pretty cool. The only thing about this series that I can't stand are the covers. They just look kind of computer generated. Not necessarily AI, but they just look like clip art, photoshopped. And like, I know it's super harsh, but I just think they deserve cooler covers. Like, these are the weird sci-fi books that maybe you don't want to read. But I think that totally misrepresents the beauty of the world that they live in. Very much South American, indigenous, bright colors, very, very diverse religious groups. I think, I don't know, there are so many artists on Instagram that do book covers, and I just think someone needs to design some really sick special edition covers for these. Because it's also a frequent complaint that I see in the comments or like reviews of the books is just how not attractive the book covers are. If you haven't checked out that series, it's called Between Earth and Sky. The first book is Black Sun, and the sequel is Fevered Star. I'm really excited to read the third book in the series, which I believe is the last book. Mirrored Heavens, I think, is what it's called. So, yeah, sci-fi fantasy. If you're into it, check it out. Anyways, thank you for waiting around for however long it took me to make another video. I haven't been able to like talk properly for the last 3 weeks. So I haven't really made any videos, but I had surgery to remove some salivary stones. Super cool. Anyways, so now I can talk much better. I also need to make another video about all the music that I listened to in the first quarter of the year. So I'm hopefully going to get that together soon as well. But thank you for watching, and hopefully I see you again. Bye.